Listen to that. This is Todd Connor recording on location in late spring in a rainy Rio de Janeiro for the start of the second season of The Carioca. Last season in New York, I set out on an expedition to create a kind of a portable audio bookshelf of classic stories from old Rio. I wanted to put on the map some fictional characters from the past, those types who made that old city in a new world what it was. Now those stories will stay on that shelf in the cloud for browsing through, revisiting, putting digital dog ears on, and I hope to be enjoyed again and again. This second season will be more like entering a gallery of portraits that exhibits a dozen or so real-life characters who inhabit the story of a Rio that exists right now. I hope to illuminate not just the characters of this story in progress, but also the character of those individuals whose hearts beat across two Americas, in New York and Rio de Janeiro, all of whom fit the description of what I call a carioca. Cecília Afonsopena is a true, born-to-the-beach, carioca da gema, a carioca from the yoke. And she's the great-granddaughter of the 6th President of the Republic of the United States of Brazil. Alfonso Augusto Moreira Pena held office from 1906 to 1909. In fact, he was a direct contemporary of the author of those stories on that bookshelf I just mentioned in the cloud, Machado de Assis. And so, Cecilia might be the best person in Rio who can take us, personally and musically, on a flight atop the cloud, connecting that old Rio to the Rio of now. I sat down with Cecilia in her Copacabana apartment where she told me her story and offered a few thoughts about her adventures in New York City, her life in music, and, of course, her great-grandfather, the president. After listening, if you'd like to read a bit more, see a few pictures, visit the website at www.thecarioca.com, and while you're there, please, click the link to PayPal. Leave a small donation if you like what you hear, or a big one if you really like it, or if you want something tangible, follow the link there to the Carioca store. Take a look at the merch. Buy a mug. Buy a t-shirt. Your financial support is so crucial to be able to continue these podcasts. And finally, subscribe. Forward this to your friends. Drop a line. Send me your thoughts. And meanwhile, I'm just glad you're out there in the cloud, listening.
The first time I went to New York, I was 4 years old. And I loved it so much, man. I was crazy. I went to the Central Park. I had my coat, my hat, and I saw so many squirrels, that I was crazy. I want one. I was running after them, and I was giving them things to eat, and I thought it was fantastic. And then inside of me, I didn't realize that I was wishing one day to live there. But then when I was 28 years old, I decided to go there. Imagine. Wilhelmina came to Rio to find a special model for her agency in New York. So it was like a contest, And I won. She called me among 100 models to make a contract and go modeling in New York. And I sort of signed a contract. Okay. Then she was waiting for me to go there, but I didn't go because I was afraid. I was afraid because I was a girl that was very, with this kind of education, a Catholic education, and old-fashioned education that you cannot go out by yourself, that you cannot play with just somebody, that you have to go to this good school and blah 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 blah. You can't talk, you can't cross legs, you can't several things, no? Especially women, no? So I was a little afraid. I said, oh my God, I'm going to stay in New York by myself, living in an apartment or in a hotel, I don't know. And I had a very good boyfriend here that I liked very much, And so I didn't want to leave him. So I didn't go. This was, I was about 20, 24, 25, something like that. And then I decided to go in when I was 28, but I went by myself with no compromise with nobody. And I didn't have much money. I didn't have money at all. I was with a guy, a Chilean guy. We were in New York. And then we said, what are we going to do? He said, I would like to go to Boston to study music at Berkeley School. And I said, that's a good idea. We can start from Boston, that's a smaller town, and more conservative and more, And I think it's a good idea. And then we went there. This is Onyx, my pet. Well, I arrived in New York 1 year later after being modeling for 1 year in Boston. And I got a job at the Brazilian consulate with my uncle, ambassador. He asked the consul to take me as a hostess for the Brazilian consulate. So I went there and started working 9 to 5. And living in Brooklyn Heights, but at night I would do singing classes, singing lessons. Well, I think the first time I sang was at the Washington Square Park. a big success. I mean, we played at Central Park. We played at the Museum of Natural History. Behind this big what is this animal there? The bones of what is this animal there?
It's a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
A Tyrannosaurus
The T-Rex,
Rex!
yeah.
The T-Rex! We were under him. It's him. It's almost him because it's so enormous. And we were behind, like in front like this, playing our primitive sounds, like drums. And there were two capoeiristas. Oh, I met so many Brazilians, including musicians that were coming to New York from Brazil. Because here was dictatorship. And we were sort of hippies, And hippies were not very well seen here. And I just chose to leave the country. I was not invited to go out as Caetano and Gil and others did. And I was playing also with other people's songs, other people's groups. I played, for example, with Darius and Danny Brubeck. I met Dave Brubeck in his house in Connecticut. Okay, beautiful house. He played for me, and I met his two sons in Soho because they bought a big apartment. That in Soho they are very big because they were big spaces like this. They bought one, and they did a performing loft there in this place. So I performed several times there, and I was friends with Danny and Dave Brubeck, Danny and Darius, that were the two sons of Dave Brubeck. Who introduced me to them was a Mexican guy called Antonio Zepeda. He's a fantastic musician. He's great. Antonio is incredible. He used to play with us too. Cubans, Mexicans, who else played with us? Puerto Ricans, Brazilians that were there. We were like a how do you say, a nucleus of Latin musicians, And we had a band, a regular band, piano, bass, drums, saxophone, voice, and percussion. This was the band. And the other one was Astra Carnival, was only percussion and capoeira. Okay? So we did both. Of course, the second, the group, or the traditional band, we used to perform at places like the Village Gate or underground, Oh, yeah, and this percussion band, we used to play at parks and outside things, museums. To whom I played, my dear? Singing with the guitar and percussion, Grace Kelly. That's all. In a party that Lufthansa gave to her at Fifth Avenue. A marvelous penthouse. We ate a lot, good things, and drank too. And then I played also to the Shah of Iran. Man, I couldn't believe it. But this was another group. It was a group with other musicians, and I was singing. I went with Danny and Darius Brubeck to play in universities around the state of New York. Like 4 or 5 universities playing. nada songs. Nada means nothing. But in Sanskrit, I think it means something else. It means everything. Nada means everything. In Portuguese means nothing.
O meu coração assim e me faça sofrer demais. E se algum dia minha paz eu encontrar e o sol entrar pela janela, o meu peito vai se abrir e então eu vou te abraçar. Sentir amar, cantar. Vou caminhar por aí até encontrar o sol. Razão de ser, não vou deixar que a ilusão maltrate o meu coração assim e me faça sofrer demais. E se algum dia minha paz eu encontrar e o sol entrar pela janela, o meu peito vai se abrir e então eu vou te abraçar. Sentir amar, cantar.
We'll return in a moment to my conversation with Cecília Afonsopena. But if you happen to be enjoying this episode of The Carioca in your second language, and you're planning a short trip to New York or anywhere in the U.S., or you're planning a longer stay, or maybe you married into America and you need to deepen your understanding, and fast. Not just the language, but the customs, the manners, the ways that Americans do things, well, you need American Ways. AmericanWaysNY.com offers an online, personalized, educational gymnasium that will allow you to hit the ground running as soon as you land in the U.S. Hit the ground running, you ask? I'll let Chris Vieira and her team at American Ways unpack that phrase for you before you even start to unpack your bags. And even if it's just grammar or phonetics you need, there's no better way to pick it up than at American Ways. Chris and her team have been at this a long time, and they know where you're coming from. AmericanWaysNY.com. So Cecília and I finally arrived in our chat at the subject of her family and her esteemed namesake, her great-grandfather, the President, Alfonso Pena.
My mother married one of the descendants. So we were all the time, she was going all the time to my father's house, né? And she knew everything about it. Someone decided this. I didn't ask. I didn't ask why they decided to put the whole name of the president in the descendants. My father was not Afonso Pena. My father was Pena, Hélio Pena. My mother was Lígia Pena. And I am Maria Cecília Afonso Pena. I don't know very well the story about it. I don't like very much politics. I am an artist. So what I read was the letters that he wrote to my grand-grandmother.
Would you read one of his letters?
Oh, sure. Which one?
How about this one?
Querida Mariquinhas, Recife, 3 de junho de 1906.
Dear Mariquinhas,
São 5:30
Recife, June 3rd,
Acabo
1906.
de tomar banho frio.
It's 5:30 in the morning and I just took a cold bath, enjoying a few moments to write a couple lines to my much adored Garrichinha, to tell her that I am in good health, thank God. The task of the journey to endlessly visit plants, factories, public establishments, hospitals, etc., is heavy, and I don't know how to thank God for having given me the energy to do it. Taking information, listening to everyone, as I have done up to now. Yesterday, on arrival, so great was the size of the crowd that I got separated from the friends protecting me from the crush at the station, and once out of that, and even so not very well, by the secretary of the governor, the lieutenant colonel adjutant, and Dr. Sa Freri, all the way to the middle of the plaza. There was a review of troops in formation. Even so, I had to duck for cover under a platform at the request of the commandant of one of those battalions, who observed it was impossible to get past the masses of people closing in around me. It was there that the governor was able to reunite with me, and with help from officers of the army, was able to open up a path so I could get back to the railway car, which separated the masses like wings unfurling. The people of the North are enthusiastic and demonstrative, and show themselves quite devoted to the self-sacrifice shown in coming to visit them. Placing great hope in my future government, God grant that I can realize it for them, in part at least. I do endeavor to keep myself distracted, but from the moment I disengage from the spirit of observation of the people and the things I came to study, my thoughts burn for Belo Horizonte, and I feel the bite of saudades and tears come to my eyes. It's happening now while I write this, knowing meanwhile that I mustn't make you unhappy. I'm going to hear Mass now and take a walk this morning to get to know the city. After lunch I will go to Olinda, former capital of Pernambuco, which is 3/4 of an hour journey by rail. I enjoyed so much hearing that Gita is studying piano and is going to begin English lessons. I need so much that my daughters get instruction for their well-being and make me proud. I imagine that Cuquinho will feel very much the absence of his papa, who, more than once, interrupted the conversations he has with his dolls. Cheesy certainly must be talking on and on and on about Grandpa, and the young masters, Fabio and Elvesio, probably won't even know him when he returns and wants to kiss them. Oh, I received a nice letter from Tavo, who talks a lot about Mommy. He's a little boy with a heart of gold. God keep him that way. I heard that Alexander telegraphed to colleagues from Recife, which I appreciated. Blessings to the children. And you, I embrace and kiss passionately. Yours. Only yours.
Negrão. I never thought that my grandfather would write these things, like I didn't know he was so in love with the children and the wife, and the family. And before him there were 2 or 3 militaries. He was the third or fourth, I don't remember very well. But he was not military. He was a lawyer. So he became a governor of Minas and then president. After 2 militaries, but I think the militaries did the coup to put down the imperialism. So he had to hold a big hot potato, like, let's say, because it was a changing regime,
It must have taken a huge toll on his health. You said he didn't finish his term in office,
No.
Is that right? It sounds like he was
He
exhausted.
was exhausted. He was. And there were people, like, trying to destroy him, like put him down.
How do you mean? Do you know?
No, I don't know exactly, but I heard that, But they don't talk very much about it. But there were some names that we couldn't say. Maybe those names were the people that tried to put him down, to take him out of the presidency.
So it was just as cutthroat, if not more, maybe, than it is now.
Oh, probably. That Vargas killed himself because of that. He just died,
Yeah, it's easy listening to these letters, and there's one more I want you to read.
Okay.
That's more personal.
Yeah.
But I want you to read.
Which one?
This is it here.
This one. Bordo do paquete Maranhão, alto mar, na altura da terra do Ceará.
Aboard the vessel Maranhão,
Em 14 de
high
junho
seas
de
just above the coast of Ceará, on the 14th of June 1906 at 9:30 at night.
minha adorada
My adored Mariquinhas,
na intensidade dos
amid the immensity of the sea,
ouvindo
hearing the symphony of the Guarani above the land of which Alencar sang,
da terra que
my thoughts fly to be with you in a surge of saudades impenetrable, and eyes
de saudade
glazed over with tears.
com os olhos rasos
I don't lose sight of you for even one moment as we are separated by more than 700 leagues.
separados por mais de
Our thoughts meet and become one despite the distance,
pensamentos se encontram,
which cannot separate hearts that love one another and find themselves bound by ties unbreakable.
pode separar corações que se amam e se acham unidos por laços indissolúveis.
In Santa Barbara,
Em Santa Bárbara,
everything speaks to me of you,
dos dias felizes
of happy days of our honeymoon, which
que se
has been ongoing for years and will never come to an end while God continues to give us life. Yes, to God we owe infinite thanks for the blessing that allowed our union.
devemos infinitas graças pela bênção que concedeu a nossa união.
This is the first time I'm able to ride on board at full steam on the high seas, and my heart goes toward you,
Vapor em alto mar.
as does all my being.
Vai o meu coração, todo o meu ser.
I kiss and bless the children,
E abençoo
and here are 1,000 kisses
receba mil
from
beijos
your,
teu, todo teu.
everything yours.
Negrão. E aí?
It's very sweet.
Yeah. It's incredible, man. There was no cell phone, there was no microphone, there was no nothing, man. Imagine.
Cecilia and I pretty much wrapped up our conversation in the late afternoon in Copacabana, chatting about her family and her own daughter, Joana Flor, also a very talented and prolific composer-musician in Sao Paulo. Leaving the microphone on, I suddenly found myself a student in a micro-master class on what it means to be an artist and songwriting. So I'll leave that with you to finish, maybe an added bonus to the episode. But before I leave you here in Cecilia's capable hands, I want to encourage you again to get to the website, check out the visuals there, and please, if you can, make a donation on PayPal so I can continue to grow this new gallery of audio portraits from Rio de Janeiro for Season 2 of The Carioca.
art is something that doesn't give money, doesn't give, you don't make money. Why you don't make money? If you want to make money with art, you make. If you don't make. If you are sort of like aside, not in the mainstream. But then you can find out other solutions, I find other solutions to be able to do what I believe, that is true to me. Not that I have to obey to any recording company or to any kind of success, so to call, I consider myself successful because I did so many good things, and I didn't I didn't make a lot of money with music or with acting or everything I did. But I believe in that, and as you do, you give classes. I can give classes too, of something to make money, and then you do whatever you want in your art. One of the songs that are in that little recording tape that I showed you, I did it in the airplane going from Brazil to New York. Okay? It came an inspiration, and this song tells about partir. Partir, partir, voar, voar, nuvens douradas de verão, chegada. Sentir, sentir que o coração transborda de emoção na hora da chegada. O vento sopra em direção à lua cheia. O que me importa é que a vida seja feita de incerteza. See that line? O que me importa é que a vida seja feita de incerteza. This is because I love George Gershwin. I grew up listening to Cole Porter and George Gershwin. More George Gershwin than anything. So when I did this song, something came, to build this phrase. Like the songs of Gershwin, that great, fantastic. I grew up not only with Brazilian songs, but with American songs too. Very good American songs. Cole Porter, George Gershwin, etc., etc. O que me importa é que a vida seja feita de incerteza. O que me importa é que a vida seja feita de incerteza. But you know what that means? O que me importa? I don't care. Life is made out of uncertain things. Because I'm sure that if I go, I will arrive.
Partir, partir, voar, voar, nuvens douradas de verão, chegada. Sentir, sentir que o coração transborda de emoção na hora da chegada. Chegada. cheia de certeza. Se partindo eu sei que vou chegar.
You're listening to Chegada, Arrived. Before that was Soul em Mim, Sun Inside Me. Music by Ricardo Silveira. Lyrics and vocals by Cecília Afonsopena. Prior to that was Areia, Sand, composed and sung by Cecília Afonsopena. Musicians included Dígito on electric guitars and violão, Nacho Mena on drums and percussion, and Fernando Gama played electric bass on Chegada. The musical underscoring at the beginning was played by Joana Flor on guitar and pandeiro, vocals again by Cecília Afonsopena from another track of Chegada. All musical performances and compositions in this podcast were used with permission. International rights to their use are owned by the artists. The English translations and recordings of President Pena's letters are by Todd Connor, as is the production of this episode, copyright 2020.